Welcome to the Moms on Maternity YouTube and podcast. Today's host is Alicia Summers.
How are you, Dr. Kim?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, Dr. Kim Van Dusen, or how do you pronounce?
Technically Van Dusen.
Van Dusen.
Yes,
Okay.
you're going to say Dr. Kim. You don't have, I rarely use my last name, so it's totally
Okay.
up to you, but Dr. Kim is completely fine.
Okay, good. Well, I went onto your Instagram page this morning, the Parentologist with Dr. Kim. You have a huge following on there. And then I noticed that you're in Maui. Are you in Maui right now?
We actually just got back. I'm posting a little late because it was so hard to post in real time because I was doing so much just, and trying to enjoy myself and all of that. But yeah, we just got back. So I'm still on Maui time zone and I'm still like in the vacation blues. It's been a little hard getting back into the swing of things, but
that's okay. Yeah, you need a vacation from your vacation.
Yeah,
Always.
I do. I do.
And then I see here that you're also a Disney content creator. So was that part of your trip, or was that totally separate?
Totally separate, but I have done Disney related events over the last couple of years with them. I'm often hosted to go to Disneyland for the day and create content for them there. I was invited last year to go to Walt Disney World with them and go on a Disney cruise for a couple days and create content around that. So COVID changed things a little bit for that, but hopefully now that Disneyland's back open and things are getting better, I'll start doing more for them too.
Well, since we're on the Disney and Hawaii train, have you been to the Aulani?
No, I have not been there yet, but I'm wanting to go so bad. So we after this trip, we decided that we were going to come back and go there for the first time ever, hopefully next year. So
oh, good. Yes, I took my family a couple years ago. Best thing ever. It's not Disney overload. It's like a great resort and fun for the kids too. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to you. So you're a licensed marriage and family therapist and a registered play therapist, which caught my attention because I like the sound of that. I mean, I'm sure it's more than just getting paid to play, right? Like, what do you do as a play therapist?
Well, right now I'm actually working, I have a private practice and I work with children in my private practice, some online still now and sometimes in person. And then I also work part-time working with families and children that are on the autism spectrum. So I do a lot of parent training and treatment goals, what the parents can do at home. And then I work with the kids. So we incorporate play into everyday life. So anything that's hands-on, experiential, because a lot of kids can't communicate with just words. Some of the kids I work with are completely nonverbal and they cannot speak. Some kids I work with are very little and don't have the speech and language to articulate different words about what's wrong or how they're feeling. And so they use toys to communicate, or we use toys to build rapport and, build trust with each other so they can, heal whatever they're trying to heal. If it's something of social, emotional, through play and, through different things with different toys, like puppets, sand tray, all of that.
Yeah.
It's very moving, actually. It's quite fascinating to see it all come together.
Yeah, and the autism spectrum is very broad. My sister actually has autism, but she's in her 30s now. So when she was young, when she was a kid, nobody really knew what autism was. So now it's so challenging and hard as an adult to help her with that. And because as far as I know, there are no programs that help adults with autism. Do you know of any?
It's hard. My eldest client is actually 23. And it's been very hard for him to find services. I did have a client once. It was only over the phone, and he was in his 40s, and it was more just support, not actually let's say full on services. But my 23-year-old is having a hard time because he's old enough where he can't fit under his parents' insurance anymore, and a lot of the clinics, a lot of the private clinics that do like ABA and RDI and things like that. Don't do it after 18 or even after 21. So it's hard to find that. And it's hard to find, one-on-one aids, let's say in my case, to work with some of these, older children, but it's few and far between. There are some things out there, especially here in Southern California, but it is hard.
Yeah, definitely. And you have 2 kids, right? How old are your kids?
I do. My daughter is 7 and my son is 4. So, and they are my world. Being a mom is honestly like, I mean, that's my calling. I mean, I could quit my job tomorrow and just be a mom and I would be so fulfilled and so content. But it's fun to do both. I mean, I am very driven, career wise, and I love what I do and I love helping other kids and working with other kids, but my kids are just my world. So yeah, they're both at school right now. So luckily they're back in
Yay!
school,
Right.
and they have their social life and their academic life that they're thriving with. And so it's nice to have that balance. But yeah, I love them so much.
Where do you live?
San Diego area.
Oh, okay. So you're local. My kids
Yes.
are back in school too. So
Okay, yeah, I know. How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Okay, so pretty similar. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, and it's just such a challenge working. I mean, I'm going to get to all your titles in a moment, but just with me being in the crazy news industry with these crazy hours and schedules, I'm actually leaving work. I'm stopping work in 2 weeks. So
wow,
it's too much to handle. But you have a lot on your plate, so I need to know the secret. I need some help. You're a university professor, public conference speaker, blogger, influencer. Like I mentioned earlier, you have a huge following on Instagram, The Parentologist with Dr. Kim, which you are the founder and CEO of. It's a Southern-based family and lifestyle brand about everything parenting with a therapeutic twist. So there's a reason why you have so many followers. Why is that? What do you provide to people?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm always flattered, when people say that, because I just do what I do, and I'm just grateful for every person that follows along and comments and engages with me, because I'm so social. I love meeting other people, and it's social media's been great with that. I've met so many people over the years that have become friends in real life and just helping people online with different things. But I do provide a lot of parenting content. I do provide everything from pregnancy to postpartum to toddlerhood, even through middle school and high school. I've had some content on that as well. Most of it's, for the young child. I would say toddlerhood through elementary school is where the focus is, only because that's what I do for a living, and that's the age group that I am as a parent myself personally. But I provide a lot of therapeutic content. I have a lot of blogs on whether it's separation anxiety, childhood depression, sibling rivalry, childhood anxiety, all sorts of things, temper tantrums. I mean, you name it. I have a blog on a lot of therapeutic content, and then of course parenting content. I provide parenting tips, throughout the week. I have I'm doing a lot of IG lives with different psychologists and different book authors that focus on parenting or teaching, things like that. So it's a lot of parenting and education and teaching. And then I also do the Disney content and a lot of traveling. So I have a following that follows me for Disney creations. Whenever I go to Disneyland or Disney World or do, anything Disney related, I have a lot of Disney followers. And then of course, traveling is just in my blood. As a human and as a person, I love traveling. So we do it as much as we possibly can. And I go on lots of trips. And so I have a kind of a travel following as well. So those are kind of like the trifecta, the 3 things that I typically focus on. But I'm very eclectic. I like to do lots of different things. And I'm not very niche when it comes to that. People say, find your niche and, just focus on that one thing. And that's just not me as a human. I have so many broad interests. I mean, as you saw, I have a master's in TV broadcasting, and I worked as a reporter and producer for many years in LA in the entertainment industry. And sometimes wish I still did that, didn't turn gears, and do the psychology route, just because I love that as well. And I love being in front of the camera, and I love interviewing people, and just all of that. But I'm hoping to incorporate that at some point. I'm starting my podcast soon and writing my book soon, and then hopefully we'll do some more content online, whether it's on YouTube or some type of show type related thing too. So I can incorporate both degrees and both interests, since I love them both.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say you wish you maybe would have stayed in broadcasting, because I think there's more longevity in being a psychologist.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I agree, especially, I hate to even say this out loud, but I think especially for females in the entertainment industry, I feel as much as I hate to say it, because I absolutely hate even those words come out of my mouth, but I do believe at a certain point, you know, there are more opportunities to, like you said, the longevity of being a psychologist. I can do that well after I retire. I mean, I know people that are in their 70s and 80s still doing psychology and still have a private practice, or, you know, own an agency and have people working under them, you know, doing therapy, but they're the owners of it, and are very successful into, you know, even their, you know, mid 80s. My old boss that I worked with for years was in her mid 80s before she retired, and you know, had a very successful therapeutic business. So, so there is, but I miss that world. I miss, you know, I miss, you know, just all of everything that came with that too. So if I can incorporate both, and have the best of both worlds, I will. But yeah, there's definitely, I have a lot of years left in me to help kids and help families for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're making more of a difference and you're helping people more doing what you're doing now. Because, you know, women, we touched upon a little bit, do kind of have a shelf life in this industry, but you're still creating or involving the best of both worlds in your life right now, because you're constantly on my station, CBS 8,
Yes.
On the morning show.
Yes.
So you're using your expertise and you're an expert on TV. So that is,
yes. I love it. I miss coming to the studio. I know that ended for a while too. And you know, maybe there's more opportunities now, but yeah, I was coming down there quite often and working a lot with Heather Myers and, you know, the whole team. And I love being down at the studio. It makes me kind of feel a little bit like a home away from home. So, and I love teaching. I teach play therapy, and I also teach parent-child therapy. I'm actually teaching just usually in the summertime. I've taught different courses over the years, but those are my two big ones. And I'm teaching 3 courses this summer. So it's going to be quite busy, but I love it. I love teaching. I teach master's and doctoral level students about what it is to do, you know, what we do in this field. And that's a huge passion of mine too.
well, what university do you work for?
It's called Alliant International University. It's Scripps Ranch, San Diego area. So
Right down the street.
it is right down the street. Yeah. So, but it's fun. And it's still, everything's still online. So even last year when I taught, everything was online. But it's okay. It actually, you know, it saves me some, some gas money doing it. I can be in the comfort of my own home. And when I take breaks, I can see the kids to, you know, say, 'cause I teach at night. So I can say goodnight to them, you know, instead of missing a whole night with them. So I don't necessarily mind the online. It's 4 hours at a time, so it can be a little bit daunting, but I actually don't mind it, you know, very much. So
Yeah, I wonder, do you think that the university will maintain this virtual learning, like a hybrid thing, instead of just being in person like it was before? Right. Now that we've learned that we can do it, do you think that Alliant University will keep you on maybe in a small amount of being virtual?
yeah, you know, I don't know. I know they've gone back and forth a lot. And obviously we know, you know, preschools have been in basically this whole time, now elementary schools, but I've seen middle schools and high schools go back, and haven't really kept up on other college campuses and what they're doing and if they're back or how they're handling it. But I definitely think there's a way that it can work. If they can make it work in K through 12, I think they can make it work at a college level, you know, whether they have plexiglass, you know, maybe make the classes smaller, you know, everyone wears masks the whole time. I mean, it's doable and it can happen. So I hope they do, because I know the students aren't happy with it as much as I don't necessarily mind teaching that way. It's not ideal because a lot of times everyone's on mute and I'll be presenting something and then you can't hear anyone. And I like to tell jokes and kind of keep things lively as I go. And sometimes I'll say something and I'll have literally silence. And I'm like, did anyone hear me? Did anyone think I was funny? Yeah. And, you know, and then I'll get some comments in the chat of, yeah, that was funny, but it's not the same. Like I can't talk to my students as much as I did before. Like I would, during breaks, I would walk around the room and, you know, ask about their families or ask about just other things just to get to know them better. And I don't have that opportunity to do that online. So, and I know the students I work with do not like it. They miss it a lot. So I hope they do change that soon.
Yeah, a lot of kids do not like that distance learning, but the silver lining of the whole thing once the pandemic is over is maybe you could take your class to Maui or Hawaii and you don't have to take vacation or miss the day and you could just take it on the road.
Yeah,
So,
that has been one of the nice benefits, especially when my daughter was virtual. You know, we could essentially go anywhere and she could just take her laptop with her or her little iPad and we could, you know, never miss a day of school. And it was nice. That was one nice little perk about it.
and it's cool how you blog and you do a travel blog and you're a content creator for Disney because you can take your kids with you. And I'm sure
Yes.
you're the coolest mom.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah. My husband likes the perks too. You know, when we get, you know, the dinners and the cabanas and just all of the fun stuff. He's like, oh, this isn't too shabby. I like this, you know, it's fun. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of my job, even being as a play therapist is very fun in a lot of respects, you know, because I get to play with kids for a living essentially, but, you know, I'm helping them therapeutically, but in a fun way. But the travel part, the Disney part, I mean, I've been a Disney fan since I was a kid. My very first job actually was at UTC in La Jolla, at the Disney store. That was my first job out of high school. So, I mean, I've been a Disney fan for years and years and years. So just lucky to be part of that family because it's just a passion of mine. But like I said, I've been traveling, you know, I traveled with my family as I was growing up and that's a huge part of my life. And now I love to, you know, bring that on for my children and have them see the world, you know, through their eyes. And it's been great, that experiential kind of learning. And, but yeah, it's great because when I work, I can take them with us, you know, and work at the same time. And it's fun. That part of my job is very, very fun. So.
Yeah. And one of the questions was, how do you do all of this and have two young kids? And that's kind of part of the answer, right? You take them with you.
Yeah. Yes. The other parts can be hard. I mean, it's a huge balance, as you know, it's being a working mom, and having children and having, you know, other aspirations and, you know, different things like that. It can be hard sometimes. There's definitely some sacrifice. There's definitely some stressful moments, you know, but it's, if you're able to, I always say, if you're able to focus on whatever you're focusing on, focus on that 100%. And then, you know, and then the next thing, focus on that 100%. The multitasking doesn't always work. I can do it. And I've been pretty good at it over the years, but as you know, it's, if I can just focus on work for, let's say 2 hours during the day when they're at school and get all of that done. And then when they're home, just focus on them or whatever the case may be. It's made things a little bit easier to kind of compartmentalize, you know, different parts of my life to get it all in. And sometimes I just go to bed and say, you know what, I didn't get it all done and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow's a new day and whatever I didn't have to get done, you know, if there's no like, you know, hard deadline, then I'm okay putting it off to the next day. I never used to be like that. I used to always had to get everything done and stay up till midnight. And now just my sleep and my health and just, you know, my mental health, even just waking up the next morning, you know, not being exhausted, you know, when the alarm goes off, has really helped to just say, you know what, I didn't get it done. I'll do it tomorrow.
No, that's great. It keeps your sanity and you need it when you have so much on your plate.
Yes.
Okay. So as a parentologist,
Yes.
I have a lot of friends who also have young kids and they ask me, how do you manage toddler tantrums? Like, how do you make it stop or do you not make it stop? Like, what would your advice be for dealing with that tantrums?
Tantrums are hard and they obviously go on a spectrum. You know, you have the child who might, you know, be so dysregulated that they literally cannot calm their bodies down for a long period of time. 20 minutes of yelling, crying, kicking, screaming, you know, whatever the case may be. And then you have some kids that, you know, they don't like that you gave them a green cup instead of a blue cup or something, you know, to us simple and manageable, but they're devastated about it. And then they will have a quick, let's say tantrum, if you will. And then all of a sudden you distract them with, you know, Bluey on TV and then they're fine 30 seconds later. So there's such a spectrum on how to handle it. I say, you know, for the children that it is something, let's say more minor and someone who isn't so dysregulated that you can calm down. Kids, obviously, when they're at that state, their stress levels are high, their cortisol levels are high. You can't rationalize with them when they're in that state. So I usually say, you know, for the parent, you know, to ride it out. I know sometimes it's hard when we're at Target and, you know, people are watching and, you know, all of that. I mean, I've been there, but as much as possible for the parent to stay calm, for the parent to kind of ride it out. If you can distract them and deflect to something else, like, oh, look at this over here, or, you know, let's walk over this way. Or if you can do that, I would say 60 to 70% of my experience is that will work. to do that. For the children that are just, like I said, so dysregulated, that's really hard for them to come down. It takes a while. Yes, you can try things like, deep breathing, or you can, try those types of coping mechanisms. A lot of times, like bubbles for little kids, especially, bubbles and any type of sensory item like Play-Doh, or, if you can get them to actually tangibly do something that will invigorate their sensory system, always have something in your pocket to give them and say, here, squeeze this ball, or, whatever the case may be. You can teach those kids very early with that kind of stuff.
Good.
And then, like I said, just write it out, like, after they're done, and then, coddle them if you need to, talk to them, be like, okay, what can we do differently next time? And really kind of, and sorry, one more quick thing. You asked me this question, I feel like I could talk about it forever, but one more quick thing on that is the biggest thing I also tell parents, and what I try and teach parents, is to notice the tantrum before it happens, instead of reacting to it after it's already happened, but to try and stop it before it even actually happens, to be proactive in noticing your child starting to get agitated. Maybe they didn't eat, maybe they're hungry, maybe they didn't sleep well, it's nap time. Don't take them to Target when it's an hour before nap time, or before they eat, type thing, but to proactively look for those signs of, okay, it's going to come, it's going to blow. So let's not do this, or whatever the case. It can't always happen that way, but most of the time I try and teach parents to try and stop it in its tracks before it even happens at all.
Great advice. I mean, so you were also a contributor for the Today Show, right? The parenting team?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I would imagine this was a big topic, or this would have been a hot topic. What did you contribute to on the Today Show? What was the topic that day?
So I wasn't actually on the actual show. It's a parenting website that you can write pretty much anything you want. It's almost like a Today Show parenting team web blog, if you will. Mm-hmm. And you have your own page, and you contribute as much or little as you want. I mean, I usually try to do once a month and do a new topic once a month on all sorts of things. One of the very first articles I wrote is, what is ghosting doing to our mental health and to our children? And just talking about that, whole ghosting mentality of, someone being your friend and then all of a sudden just not being your friend anymore, and kind of, what that does to a child's psyche, and what it does to a child's self-esteem and things like that. So I've written on couples type, content, where I talk about, I actually had an article about couples and how much sex couples should be having. So as a marriage therapist,
how much sex should couples be having?
It's funny because I took a survey of 100 women, who are identified as women, saying, how much sex do you have with your husband? And there were so many factors of, if they had kids, if they didn't have kids, how many kids, how old their kids were, if they had teenagers versus toddlers. And, as you can imagine, it definitely varied. But I would say most people on average, out of those 100 people that I identified, and most of the couples I work usually come to me because they're not having, very much. So, but most of the people that took the survey were about once a week, I would say, was the average. So I would say that's pretty healthy. If you can do once a week, that's a pretty healthy, some people were saying every day, some people were saying once a month, quarterly, a couple were yearly. But I would say about once a week is a pretty healthy time.
And I should mention that you're a marital and family therapist as well. So yes. You know your stuff.
Yeah.
Once a week, folks. Once a week.
I worked with many couples in the past. I like working with kids better. Working with couples is hard. It's challenging. And even being in a marriage myself, we were actually celebrating our 10-year. That's why we were in Hawaii.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Our 10 years, because we actually got married in Maui 10 years ago. So we came back to take the kids, and we went back to the beach we got married at, and we did the whole photo shoot in 9 yards. It was fun. But yeah, I have definitely have a lot of experience with couples, and it's hard work. It's hard work being in a marriage, and it's hard work helping someone with a marriage. It's just, it's hard. There's a lot of factors that come into that. So
yeah, so much. And then before I let you go, I want to talk about a book you're writing, the very first book that you're writing, and then you're also hosting your own podcast as well. So tell me about those two things.
Well, if I could actually get my act together and launch them both, all my dreams would come true. I actually have about 5 episodes of my podcast already done and recorded. I just have to edit them and actually launch them. Like it's literally at my fingertips. So I actually have the Parentologist podcast is my handle on Instagram. It has no posts yet. It's just waiting to launch. So I'm hoping to launch that this month. as soon as I can, even as soon as I can get that up and rolling. And then my book, I'm almost done writing my book proposal. And as soon as I can get it out to literary agents, hopefully it'll get picked up by a publishing company and hopefully be on paper, in my dream within the year. So
and that's also the Parentologist?
I haven't had the exact title yet. I've been playing around. I've had different ones over the years. It's literally been years since I've been trying to put this together. And as you know, it's just hard to find the time sometimes. And my husband hates that. He says, if you really want to do something, time shouldn't be an excuse. But as a mom, I say, well,
there's always something.
I don't have time. Something has to give, Anyway, but it's going to be a parenting book with very practical tips on how to handle things like tantrums, sibling rivalry, like everyday issues that parents deal with, the everyday parent deals with. It's going to have some very practical tips on things to try to help and support them through those things. So I'm excited.
Okay. Yeah, that you have a lot going on. Okay, this is a question for me because my boys are dealing with sibling rivalry right now. They fight all the time. I mean, they're either the best of friends or the worst enemies.
Oh, sure.
How do I get that fighting to stop, or do I?
Well, it's funny because I actually just wrote a blog about this like a month ago. So definitely go check it out and share it with everybody because I feel like I get asked this so much. But I gave about 5 tips, and one of the ones is don't always try to be a referee. And I've had to do that for myself. It's actually advice. Half the time when I write blogs, it's more like things that I want to try to be a better parent, and I feel like that should help other parents, but it's not to always be a referee. So to not always step in, obviously, if they're, physically hurting each other, or, something like that's a difference. I've had a lot of, children with that, but if they're not physically hurting each other, give them the space to work it out, give them the space to problem solve, figure it out and whatnot. But couple things to try is, they're young. Your boys are young, and at that age, it's very, very, I'll say, normal developmentally for them to be like that. I think the older they get, you'll see less and less. But one big thing is to initiate compliments. So we do this around the dinner table, where at dinner time, or anytime that you're together, is to go around the table and each say a nice thing about the other. And everyone has to say something different. So not everyone can say, oh, and it has to be something about like their values or something, not like, oh, you have nice eyes. Okay. You can start anywhere, but as you go and get into that rhythm is, getting a little deeper and be like, I really like when he shares his toys. I really like when, he gives me a hug before bed, or whatever the case is, and focus on the good things about themselves and their relationship. I've seen that really help. And then as they get older, to support them when they, when one has a soccer game or a baseball game or whatever they're going into, is as a parent to really encourage them to support each other, to go to each other's games or practices, and, really instill some of that bond.
Good. Good advice. Thank you, Dr. Kim. I feel like I owe you for that one. That was great. We're going to try that at dinner tonight. Starting tonight. Well, it was such a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you, Dr. Kim. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
For more, please visit www.momsofmaternity.com.